Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, the supply chain industry has been the subject of continuous evolution, but now with the emergence of artificial intelligence and the importance of sustainability, what does the future hold for this critical industry? Our final guest this morning, Kerim Kfuri from the Atlas Network, has over 20 years' experience of the supply chain industry, and he joins us now to discuss the ups and downs which are inherent to such operations. But Kerim, how has the supply chain industry changed over the course of your own career?
Good morning, Carl. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I think it's evolved for the better. That's important to get started with that. In the way that we are looking at the most important things when it comes to supply chain these days, which is visibility, transparency, resilience to different shifts or changes or disruptions in the market. And for all of those reasons, I think that we've really been able to see a good evolution towards better outcomes, more dependable outcomes in the supply chain, which therefore supports the global economy even better.
Provide us with an insight into the current ideation process and what these changes mean for supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there has been leaps and bounds with regards to the ideation process in general. What I mean by that is, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you had an interesting idea, you'd have to sort of draw it down on a napkin, find a designer, find an engineer, and then basically go through an elaborate prototyping and development process that could take you months upon months, maybe even as much as a year or more to go through that process. Whereas today, through so much of the AI-related technologies, we're able to very quickly develop sketches, models within a matter of seconds or minutes. We're able to then 3D print or create physical, tangible samples and prototypes that we can look at and poll or test. And then from there, able to transmit those details to manufacturers who can essentially be able to make those ideas into reality. And we're able to do that in record time and with a lot more capabilities and efficiency than we have before.
And talk to us about the regulation of the supply chain industry and how that led you to establishing the Atlas Network.
Yeah, absolutely. The reality of it is that there wasn't a lot of regulation around the supply chain space. And when we first got started, platforms such as Alibaba, which are great platforms, great global technology trading platforms, we're actually the first U.S.-based verified supplier of Alibaba. So we're big fans of Alibaba. But at the time, you had a significant amount of bad actors who would get on that platform, who would pretend to be a reliable supplier, and then customers globally would have terrible experiences with no recourse when quality was bad or pricing was going through the roof or timeliness was not really a factor, which could disrupt or destroy businesses and entrepreneurs. So, we created the Atlas Network with the idea to put a regulated sourcing and global manufacturing process as first and most important. And that really starts with appropriate factory selection, eyes and ears on the ground through active teams and babysitting and management, and then finally third-party attestation through audit firms and things to make sure that you're accommodating industry standards and the needs and goals of your customers.
So talk to us about the full range of services that you provide through the Atlas Network, and how would you describe your typical customer profile?
Sure. So the services that we provide are very vast and very wide-ranging. It's literally the A to Z of the supply chain space. So with that in mind, the consumers or the customers of our business are also as wide-ranging. We have everyone from the entrepreneur who just wakes up and has a really neat idea and wants to kind of figure out how to bring the idea to light. Is it a strategic product? What would the cost structures look like? The analysis of the market itself, the competitive analysis, the price sensitivity analysis, the factory selection, prototyping, manufacturing, quality control process, and then the shipping, logistics, importation, delivery, fulfillment, reordering process. So this entire life cycle, as I just painted it, really is for a group that has never done anything before. and then any business, any place in between, where may have issues with their reordering or their shipping and logistics or their factory network, their quality control oversight processes, even things with regards to the efficiency of their productions or the cost structures, cost engineering. We can plug in to existing supply chains. We can develop new supply chains or enhance existing supply chains further and further, depending upon the business and their required needs. So really, in the end, we are global supply chain solutions providers, and the solution is going to be dependent upon where in the supply chain there's breakdowns or need for creation or innovation.
And talk to us about your relationship with Alibaba.
Sure. So, we are the first U.S.-based verified supplier of Alibaba. What does that mean? It means that Alibaba has worked diligently and tirelessly over the last few decades to develop significant verification programs, audited programs to determine that suppliers that are on the Alibaba platform are legitimate and will provide great experiences for consumers who are looking to buy and sell on the platform. As well, they've created programs such as trade assurance programs to safeguard customers in the experience that they have on the Alibaba platform. Well, recognizing that they wanted to move beyond just their local economy and that Alibaba is truly a global platform, they wanted to build up these networks of verified suppliers globally. And part of that was, investing in developing presence in the United States and supporting and developing and building up networks in the United States of verified suppliers to service not just the United States, but other economies. It's almost kind of their version of nearshoring, right? Bringing supplier networks, the best of the best from local economies to the platform and putting them up. And we were and are the first U.S.-based verified supplier of Alibaba, which means that it gives us access to many clients globally, but also a lot from the United States that are looking to work hand in hand with U.S.-based providers to take advantage of the global economy, manufacturing, global supply chain solutions, and so forth.
And you mentioned the term nearshoring. What is meant by that, and what is driving its rising popularity?
Sure. So the idea of nearshoring is basically being able to have production, sourcing, and supply chains that are in nearer geographies, or even ally shoring is another term that's used, where you're trying to do it with neighboring countries that are close enough that it also cuts down on time, cuts down potentially on transit costs, things of that nature. So Mexico, Canada, these are neighboring areas to the United States. The challenge with nearshoring or even ally shoring is, will it still make sense for the products or the industries that we are looking to move to these nearer places? Is closer really better? And the only way to really understand that is to go through a bit of an exercise to determine, what is the availability and cost of the materials? What is the level of output that these nations can provide to you, these closer opportunities? And does that work with regards to the demands and the needs of the nation? What are the resources that are available in these places? Do you have trained labor that knows how to make these things or run those machines? You need the resources. Is the technology there? The technology that basically not only works for today, but works for the expansion of that production into those nations. And then finally, the cost structure. Are you selling a shirt that people basically previously were paying $10 for $150 just to say that it was made closer? And if the difference between getting it for $10 or $150 is only $5 in transit costs, then it doesn't make sense to move something that was previously $10, even now $15 with transit costs, to something that's now $100 or $50 or some kind of multiple that just prices you out of the market. You don't even have consumers that are willing to pay those dollars for those kinds of goods. So this is kind of the balancing act when it comes down to nearshoring and the decisions to do something that's closer.
And sustainability must be a key consideration for supply chain operators, especially as COP29 highlighted that decarbonising supply chains is one of the most significant challenges of our time. So how are supply chain operators addressing this challenge?
Hey, that's a great question and a very relevant question. We need to understand that the global supply chain and transit market is the seventh or eighth, I can't remember which, leading cause of harmful greenhouse gas and ozone depletion on the planet. So with that in mind, we all have a responsibility to continue to look at how we're going to improve global transit and supply chain, especially in this global economy, which is just growing. We just need more things. So, looking at alternative sources of energy, hydrogen hubs, different kinds of fuel cells to get these vessels and these planes, across the world in a more effective, clean way is very important. And then outside of that, on a company by company basis, looking at where certain sustainability activities can be put in place that not only save the planet, our landfills, wastage, but at the same time actually increase profitability. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. And it's a misnomer. People always think that to be more green means that it's going to cost more money. Well, a perfect example of that would be in the realm of right-sizing or cubing, to give you an idea. And what that means is we all had that experience where you buy that box, it comes in Amazon, it's a really big box with a really tiny item inside and airbags and things like that. Well, that's a lot of wastage, that's dunnage, that's unneeded, and it ends up in our landfills. And not only that, but it costs the businesses, 3 to 4 or 5 times more than it should. You should have a box that appropriately fits to the size and protects the product inside, not bigger, not anything otherwise. And so there's technologies now that in real time basically will scan products and will determine the right size dimension packaging for the product that is trying to ship out and sell. And that is very, very important. That can save companies millions and millions of dollars in business or in wasted product as well, and obviously will be good for the planet. So we always have to look at these little micro moves in order to really solve sustainability. Each one of us has a responsibility to do so.
For sure. And how has AI been impacting supply chain up until now, and what are your predictions for AI within this space going forward?
So AI is really a challenge as far as how far we take it. And the key to any real technological innovation is the adoption of the technology. So we have a lot of really great AI and concepts and tech that's being put out into the market, but will the companies actually adopt it? Will their employees adopt it? Well, that's going to be a conversation of a tone at the top to really be able to determine if you can actually have your employees shift towards more technological solutions that could bring efficiency, but at the same time not bring complacency. And this is the balancing act that we really have to look at when it comes to AI, that we don't necessarily give up on our creativity and we continue to develop and innovate, and we don't just, we need to not just be so reliant on AI as a crutch. It's really a tool more than anything else, and that's how it should be looked at, regarded, and used. Some of the biggest innovations are some of the things that we talked about before, where we're able to do things on the ideation phase, which is great. You're able to plug in reference ideas, concepts, and then let AI be able to produce prototypes, development, things of that nature. Being able to do things such as image matching is really interesting. That's happening at Alibaba quite a bit, where you're able to take a picture of a product and it's able to quickly scour the database of hundreds of thousands of suppliers globally, and then come back with the top matching suppliers that could match to the picture you're trying to make. So that's cool. It takes away, hours and hours of time and research and trying to search to find the right groups. It's done for you. But again, it's this fine sort of line between when do we use AI, when do we not use AI, not being fearful so much. There's a whole, subset of the population that believes that AI will continue to remove jobs or remove the role of the human. But that is not the case. We need to look at that in a way that it will create new industries and create new opportunities for jobs and making people more efficient and therefore making the global economy greater.
So last year you published the book Supply Chains Ups and Downs. Talk to us about why you chose to publish the book.
Absolutely. So the book Supply Chain Ups and Downs was basically a culmination of almost 2 decades worth of experience in this realm. And what I really wanted to convey is in a relatable voice, and that's very important because it's a complicated industry and space that people don't really fully understand. I wanted to make it simple for people to understand, to explain kind of the holistic idea of what the supply chain really means. What is it about? What are some of the best practices? What are some of the pitfalls that, entrepreneurs and consumers and business owners need to look for? And therefore, the name, the ups and downs. I mean, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, this industry, and it can be very attractive. It can have amazing outcomes as long as you have proper management, oversight, and honestly, knowledge and visibility into the supply chain. And that was the benefit of it. And I wrote it, based upon those experiences, but primarily based upon what we all faced during the pandemic. This was a time where people couldn't get what they needed when they needed it the most, including, first responders and medical workers and teams, businesses, people, consumers going into the supermarket or to the store and trying to buy things and it's not available. Well, there's a lot of questions there. Why that is? How did that happen? Where does it sort of start and stop? And those were some of the things that I wanted to also cover in the book.
Quality is critical to the success of the supply chain process. So what processes do you recommend for controlling quality?
Well, I talk a lot in my book and in other places around kind of the three pillars of quality control. The first one is the factory selection process, and looking at both a quantitative and a qualitative analysis of your suppliers. Do they, have experience? What is their size? What is their levels of accreditation? How many years have they been in business? What kind of labor force? Where do they get their materials? Are they environmentally friendly? And all of these different aspects that are both quantitative and qualitative, because the first step in a good equation is picking a proper supplier. The next step, or the second, let's say, pillar would be eyes and ears on the ground, having active management, visibility into the process and transparency, so you really can be able to cut off areas of issues or problems before productions are fully underway or you can't go backwards or change. So this is the second area. And then the third part is a concept that we know very much in the financial industry, which is third-party attestation. Hiring groups that are audit firms to go in to find mistakes. They are paid to find mistakes and ensure that productions are in line with what industry standards may be.
And finally, if any of our listeners were considering starting a supply chain business today, what advice have you got for them?
Get ready for a bumpy ride. I mean, it's a very complicated industry. To start an entire supply chain business requires a significant amount of patience, resources, and honestly, the right mindset. You have to be willing to work hand in hand with businesses from all over the world. And that involves cultural exchanges that you may or may not be willing to undertake. It involves differences in terms of quality and in terms of timeliness and pricing. It revolves around a lot of creating a balancing act between the needs of your customer and the needs of your suppliers. It's exciting, it's thrilling. You're working with people and businesses from all over the world, as I said. But you have to be prepared for, a very up and down mechanism.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Kerim Kfuri from the Atlas Network, and I'd like to thank Kerim for a fascinating insight into this significantly important industry.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.